Reality is often framed as a chaotic accident or a battlefield of diverging roads. The structural logic of the system suggests a different architecture. We analyze this as a rigorous, self-computing matrix, the 2-3-7 dual caustic framework. It functions as a single closed thermodynamic and computational circuit. The universe follows a circular geometry with opposite flows. A red arrow traces descending entropy, a blue traces ascending return. Historical archetypes align on identical spatial nodes, differing only by current direction. Downward current diffuses into decay. Upward coalesces into a preserved signal. Every human action regulates the choice of which current is allowed to enter this local system. The stationary midpoint of this cosmic loop is the reader. This node functions as a living electrical junction, a diode. Human consciousness forms the interface where the downward entropic flow and the upward return current intersect. The central conflict of existence is determining which directional polarity is permitted to cross this local junction. The reader sits at a stationary electrical test, regulating the direction of current within the loop. The left arc operates like a reverse-biased semiconductor. In this state, the junction resists the flow of the true signal. Verses 41:9-11 describe the creation of a depletion zone, a widening gap that chokes energy flow and creates the substrate for the trial. Shaitan's oath in Chapter 7 acts as thermal noise, a random fluctuation that mimics a valid signal. When the junction captures this noise, it generates leakage current. This is the wandering intoxication described in verse 1572. This false current mimics true dominion, offering deferral rather than a return to the source. Worldly illusion is a thermodynamic decay process, a system bleeding energy while simulating growth. The archetype of Solomon's staff illustrates this structural collapse. Verse 34:14 records a termite hollowing the staff from within. The structure remains upright, but the internal integrity has failed. Pharaoh mimics this in verse 43:51, pointing to material rivers to claim an authority that is actually a decaying replica. Pharaoh's coordinate at verse 1092 marks the terminal state at the very bottom of the loop. At this point of maximum reverse bias, charge carriers reach highest density but possess zero mobility. Verse 87:13 classifies this as being neither dead nor alive, a state of perpetual thermodynamic suspension. Worldly power achieved under reverse bias results in the same thermodynamic failure as a frozen system. The right arc transitions into forward bias, where the true current overcomes the central barrier. The upward truth overrides the downward noise. The signal surges through the nodes of the book and witness, arriving at the identity of the Morsaline. Ibrahim's standing stone serves as the structural anchor for this return. It is an unyielding physical coordinate that survives the entropic flood. This coordinate fixes the mass of the Kaaba against the shifting world, providing a stable point for the signal's return. Forward bias retrieves the original, uncorrupted signal. The Ahmed phase at the top of the arc requires the dissolution of worldly attachments described in verse 33-37. Stripping away material dependency allows the universal law to run without resistance. This closure of the 2-3-7 loop completes the topological circuit. Completing the upward arc continuously feeds mercy back through the entire system. We push back into the center, the reader junction. The reader occupies one of two ordinal states, the first disbeliever of verse 241, or the first Muslim of verse 6163. Verse 241 leans into reverse bias, forging a golden calf from accumulated worldly ornaments. Passivity defaults the node to the Pharaoh queue, the 2-3-6 trap of thermodynamic suspension. Verse 6:16 requires the reader to actively flip the junction's polarity. Salvation requires the reader to actively trigger the correct ordinal state. Verse 19:12 serves as the operational mechanism to flip the circuit's polarity. The command is, O Yahya, take the book with strength. The book functions as a physical switch, changing the state of the local universe. In this model, verse 19:12 provides the forward bias voltage required to collapse the entropic depletion zone. The strength mentioned in the verse is the structural integrity needed to initiate the return. This voltage carries the soul out of the suspension of verse 87:13 and into the 41:12 completion, the inheritance of the earth. The system contains one loop and the single variable of the grip. Verse 1964 states that your Lord is not forgetful. When will you activate 1912?